Asia has been experiencing an economic revival since the 1960s. First, Japan, then the four little dragons, the Asian tigers, now China and India. With Asian economies doing relatively well against the background of global recession, many Asians hope that the 21st century would be the Asian century. The question is, what kind of Asian century? How would we Asians like this period of our history to be understood and remembered centuries ahead? It could be a period of impressive economic growth, but also known for bad things like environmental degradation, crimes, corruption, social disparity, religious extremism, and social conflicts. That's one view. Or it could be a period that draws on the best of human achievements and advances them. Not just draws on them, but advances them. The conceptual basis for in Asian cultural rejuvenation. History tells us that radical economic and social transformation are often accompanied by intellectual ferment and cultural effervescence. The transformations generate social dislocations that challenge existing cultural norms, ideas, and social institutions. The problems are serious, and they engage the best brains of the time. The most recent experience is, we all know, the European Renaissance and Enlightenment, which produced giants in the field of philosophy, natural sciences, social sciences, fine arts, music, architecture, and literature. These European thinkers, or I call them cultural giants, acted as a positive force during that critical period, functioning both as a social conscience and as sources of forward-looking ideas. What I outline may sound very idealistic and romantic for Asia, but my feeling is it is not. There are indicators that even seasoned political leaders have been thinking along this line. Let me quote two cases. The first is Anwar Ibrahim, a former Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, in his book, The Asian Renaissance, published in 1996. He said, the economic rise of Asia, though critical and fundamental, is only a dimension of a much deeper and more profound and far-reaching reawakening of the continent, meaning Asia, which may be called the Asian Renaissance. By Asian Renaissance, we mean the revival of the arts and sciences under the influence of the classical models based on strong moral and religious foundations. The second is the idea of the Chinese dream, propounded by the Chinese leader Xi Jinping. It is a dream of great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. That's, in a very succinct way, what we read in the paper. Seen historically, the Chinese dream is a continuation of China's mission to regain its wealth and power after the traumatic experience of repeated defeats by foreign powers since the First Opium War. The concept of the Chinese dream is very broad and is still evolving. Now, if you read the papers, it's very succinct. And there's no such thing, not like a book, a 5-year plan. It is hope, or at least I hope, that the Chinese nation will draw inspiration from human history, not just Chinese history, but human history, in their historical journey, and that the Chinese people will dream not just wealth and power, but also building a modern Chinese civilization. The same may be said of the rest of Asia. India can boast of names like Mohan Roy, Tagore, Nehru, and Gandhi. The list continues. First, I try to argue that there is a basis to think about the possibility of a cultural resurgence, but do we need it? We may not. Yeah? So I'll argue that we need. Asian leaders slowly realize the crucial importance of reform and modernization in order to face the onslaught from the West. country after country began to borrow ideas from the West, alas, not all of which are positive. We see this in the case of Japanese imperial aggression. It was a military adventure which ended in total defeat at the closure of World War II. To use a simple metaphor, modernization is like the flight of a bird. It requires two wings to function in a harmonious manner. Being wealthy, economically, and strong militarily is like one wing. You need two wings to flap. The other wing, I submit, is sound cultural intellectual development. In contrast to the modern landscape in Asian cities, Asia has a string of what I call disturbing social ills. Even in a modern economy and society that operate efficiently, we need something more. Again, if I may use the example of Japan. It is, by many measures or criteria, the most modern Asian country, yet its modernization is confined to the fields of economy, technology, and lifestyle. Asia faced three major challenges at this juncture of our history. Three, namely, drawing on our own cultural resources and rejuvenating them. Second, learning from the rest of the world. Third, Asia is a big continent. Asians learning from each other, mutual learning. The first challenge may be formulated as how and what Asians can draw from our own cultural and intellectual resources in the process of dealing with new problems. I do have to go into a long list of problems. Yeah? And I proposed that with an open and inquisitive mind, all ideas take on new meanings. Take on new meanings and interpretation in the context of new social problems. All beliefs can put on new modern attires and assume modern colors. The result is new idea. This sounds rather straightforward. Yeah? Learning from others or learning from your own cultural heritage and so on. But it is not so if we observe carefully around us. I believe the proper attitude is to embrace change and to see culture as something living, a whole concept. In fact, I steal this idea from Karen Armstrong in her book, A History of God. Therein, she argued the concept of a living religion, a living culture, living tradition. They are products of their time and they will change with the demands of the time. The second challenge is how and what to learn from others. To the extent that there are similarities in the issues involved in the transition from a pre-modern societies to a modern society, we should learn from others' experience, both positive and negative. Adoption and adaptation of foreign ideas to local conditions is a long, I would say, difficult, drawn-out process, which requires creativity, flexibility, and open mind. Though the process is complex, it has happened in history. I give three examples. Number one, here, Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia was able to adopt religious beliefs, ways of life, institutions from India, China, Middle East, and obviously Europe. The sensible attitude of learning is to be open-minded, rational, rather than being influenced by emotion and sentiments. We must be curious and humble, but at the same time be meticulous, critical, and independent. Learning from the findings of others can only increase the range of possibilities. And incidentally, the first challenge is learning from our own cultural, intellectual heritage and learning from others. They are related. Interestingly, they are related. How? I will argue the following. It is difficult to learn from foreign sources and adopt their useful elements if we are not confident. With confidence in our own cultural heritage, we are at ease to critically appreciate the achievements of others. The third challenge is for Asians to know more about each other's history, intellectual achievements, and cultural tradition. Asians actually have benefited substantially from mutual learning. In coping with the broader social and cultural issues arising with modernization, the Middle Eastern countries are more likely to consult the experiences of Indonesia and Malaysia rather than those of the West because of cultural affinity. Now, being here in Singapore, I'd like to touch on in what way I hope Singapore can contribute. Singapore is a hub of Asian Mediterranean. Cultural and intellectual rejuvenation is often a synthesis and product of cross-fertilization of cultures and ideas. Its birthplace is often located at the crossroads of diverse culture and intellectual currents. And I will argue that Singapore can have an important role in this project. Here we have four major currents of world civilization coexisting, as I stress the word, mainstreams of social life. They represent invaluable resources. Singapore is situated at the heart of Southeast Asia, a region with multi-layered sedimentation of diverse cultures. Southeast Asia is a vibrant, peaceful, and forward-looking region when we compare it to other regions with similar historical conditions. The city can aim to become a vibrant metropolis, not just for business, but also for cultural and intellectual exchange. The city can showcase some of the best thoughtful works of artistic creation which articulate the aspiration of a new Asia. So, the rise of Asia may thus be conceived as an opportunity for cultural revival, which may or may not happen. It may not happen. Much depends on how Asians will make use of the opportunity. Would Asians want to turn this opportunity into a mission? This is a question that we ourselves have to answer. The project of an Asian cultural rejuvenation is an ambitious undertaking. It is likely to last for at least several generations. It has no walls and borders. It is a global project in a sense. Contributions from all corners of the world are warmly welcome. Though the stage in Asia, the cast and audience are global. So I dare to say it's a global project. Yeah? This opens up a new arena of international cooperation for all who aspire to contribute to the long-term well-being of humanity.